You know, there's almost nothing more primal, more profound than holding your baby. It's meant to be this perfect moment of connection, right? A soft, warm cuddle that just makes the whole world feel right. But what happens when, for some parents, that moment just doesn't happen?
You reach for your child, your crying baby, fully expecting them to just melt into your arms. But instead, they arch their back like a little bow, they stiffen up, and maybe they even cry harder. And in that moment, it is so easy to feel completely confused, hurt, and ask yourself, what am I doing wrong? It feels like rejection. But what if it's not rejection at all? What if it's a form of communication we just don't understand yet? Today, we're going to investigate the hidden reasons behind this really baffling behavior.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to treat this like a detective story, peeling back all the layers of this mystery. We'll start with the most obvious clue, the body's own SOS signals. Then we'll dig a little deeper, into the mind, looking at the baby's overwhelmed nervous system. After that, we're going to journey way back in time to find an echo from our evolutionary past. We'll even explore the deep psychology of that parent-child bond. And don't worry, we're going to end with a really practical toolkit to help you reconnect.
So our investigation begins with the body. When a baby arches their back, especially when they're crying, the very first, most logical question we have to ask is, are they in pain? A lot of the time, this really dramatic posture is a literal SOS signal that something inside just plain hurts.
Okay, so the most common culprit is something a lot of parents have heard of, reflux, or its more severe big brother GERD. A baby's digestive system is, well, it's still a work in progress. That tiny muscular valve that's supposed to keep stomach contents where they belong, it's often underdeveloped. So when stomach acid flows back up into the esophagus, it causes a feeling just like heartburn in an adult. And what's a baby's instinctive reaction? They arch their back. It's a totally natural attempt to stretch out the esophagus, to create more space, trying to relieve that painful burning feeling.
Now, in some rare cases, this back arching can be incredibly dramatic. We're talking about a condition called Sandifer syndrome. It's almost always tied to severe GERD. A baby with this will suddenly go totally rigid, arching their back so intensely they can look stiff as a board or even form a U shape with their body. These episodes can last for up to 3 minutes and happen multiple times a day, usually right after a feeding. It is so jarring to see that it's often mistaken for a seizure, but it's really the baby's body having an extreme involuntary reaction to the intense pain of reflux.
So how in the world can you tell the difference? Let's just break it down. With your typical GERD, the arching you'll see is common, but it's usually pretty brief. But with Sandifer syndrome, the posture is way more dramatic. We're talking a full-on U shape. The episodes are also more frequent, sometimes up to 10 times a day, and they can last much longer. And here's a key difference. Sandifer's often comes with other specific movements, like their head twisting or their limbs going stiff. The big takeaway here is that while both are rooted in reflux pain, Sandifer syndrome is a much more intense, full-body reaction.
For years, reflux was pretty much the go-to explanation for any baby arching their back. But here comes our first big plot twist. A major study in the Journal of Pediatrics back in 2023 decided to actually test this assumption. Researchers monitored these little babies with 24-hour probes to see when acid was actually present during these arching fits, and the result was stunning. Only 8%, just 8% of the time was the arching and fussiness actually linked to an acid reflux event. This finding just blows the whole thing wide open, right? If 92% of these episodes are not caused by acid reflux, what else is happening inside these tiny bodies and brains? If it's not always a pain signal, what other messages are they desperately trying to send us? This means our investigation has to go deeper, beyond the stomach, and into the central nervous system. And that brings us to our next line of inquiry. If it's not always physical pain, then what is happening inside the baby's brain? I mean, this complex little command center is still learning how to process the entire world. And for some infants, the very sensation of touch can be the problem.
This is a condition called tactile defensiveness. Think of it as a form of sensory processing disorder, where the brain just misreads touch signals. It's like, imagine your nervous system is a smoke detector. In most of us, it goes off when there's actual smoke. But in a baby with tactile defensiveness, the alarm goes off from just a piece of toast. A gentle, loving caress that should be calming is instead processed as a major threat. Their brain goes into a state of red alert, triggering a full-blown fight or flight response to something that's supposed to feel safe.
And this leads to a really fascinating paradox. A light touch, like a soft stroke on the cheek, can trigger that fight or flight response, just sending alarm bells ringing through their system.
But firm, deep pressure does the exact opposite. Things like a tight swaddle or a firm, steady hug, that actually activates the calming part of their nervous system. This gives them what therapists call grounding input, which helps organize a disorganized brain and even triggers the release of dopamine, the brain's feel-good chemical. So it's not that these babies hate touch, it's that they need a very specific kind of touch to feel safe.
Okay, for our next clue, we need to zoom out. I mean, way out. We're going to travel back in time, deep into our evolutionary history. Because some of this behavior isn't about the individual baby's brain, but about ancient survival instincts that are hardwired into all human infants.
You know, evolutionary biologists classify mammals into different groups based on how they care for their young. You've got cash mammals, like deer or rabbits. Their babies are born pretty independent. The mom can hide them in a nest and leave them for a while. But humans, like apes, we are carry mammals. Our babies are born completely helpless. For our ancient ancestors, a baby that was set down was a baby in mortal danger from predators. Survival depended on one thing: constant physical contact with a caregiver. This isn't just a preference, it's a deeply ingrained biological imperative.
And this brings us to something amazing called the transport response. This quote just nails it. Have you ever noticed this? Your crying baby might calm down the second you stand up and start walking, only to start fussing again the moment you sit back down. Yeah, that's the transport response in action. The baby's ancient brain associates movement with safety. A walking parent is an alert parent, ready to run from danger. A stationary parent, from an evolutionary point of view, is a vulnerable parent. So when they arch and fuss in your lap, they may not be rejecting you, they're instinctively protesting the perceived danger of being still.
So far, we've looked at the body, the brain, and our evolutionary past. But there's one last piece to this puzzle, and it's probably the most delicate. It's the emotional bond between a parent and child, and how that bond is shaped by touch.
Back in the 1950s, a psychologist named Harry Harlow did a famous and pretty controversial experiment. He gave baby monkeys two fake mothers. One was made of cold, hard wire, but it had a bottle of milk. The other one was covered in soft terry cloth, but had no food. Now, the theory back then was that babies bond with their moms simply because they provide food. Harlow completely blew that idea out of the water. The baby monkeys spent almost all their time clinging to the soft cloth mother. They'd only scurry over to the wire mother for a quick meal before running right back to the source of comfort. The experiment showed, powerfully, that the need for contact and security is a primary biological drive. It's even more fundamental than hunger.
Now, building on this, psychologist Mary Ainsworth developed her strange situation experiment, and one attachment style she identified was called insecure avoidant. In her experiment, these babies showed very little distress when their parent left the room, and here's the really telling part. When the parent came back, the baby would actively look away, ignore them, or even refuse to be held. Now, this isn't because the baby doesn't need contact. It's a heartbreakingly smart defense mechanism. If a caregiver is consistently unresponsive, maybe because they're struggling with something like postpartum depression, the baby learns that trying to get comfort is pointless and emotionally painful, so they suppress their natural instinct to get close to protect themselves from the pain of that rejection. They basically learn to stop asking for the one thing they need the most.
Okay, we've investigated the body, the brain, evolution, and psychology. It's a lot to take in, I know. But understanding why this is happening is the critical first step. So now let's pivot from investigation to empowerment. Let's build a toolkit of practical, science-backed strategies you can actually use to help reconnect with your baby through touch.
Our toolkit has 3 key parts, and each one directly tackles the clues we've just uncovered. We're going to learn how to work with your baby's instincts, not against them. We'll use that transport response, we'll apply deep pressure, and we will practice something called kangaroo care.
First up, let's tap into that ancient survival instinct. Instead of trying to soothe your baby while you're sitting on the couch, put them in a soft, structured baby carrier or a sling and just start walking. That constant rhythmic motion sends a powerful signal to their primitive brain. We're moving, we are alert, we are safe. This kicks in that transport response we talked about, which can lower their heart rates and quiet their cries, satisfying that deep, deep-seated need for a caregiver who's on the move.
Next, for the baby whose nervous system is on red alert, we need to bypass those hypersensitive light touch pathways. This is where deep pressure is your best friend. Think about a firm, steady massage down their back, their arms, their legs. Or think about a snug swaddle that gives them constant reassuring pressure all over their body. This deep input helps to organize their sensory system. It turns off all the alarm bells, and, as we learned, it releases that wonderful calming dopamine. It's really about speaking a language their nervous system can finally understand as safe and soothing.
And finally, one of the most powerful tools we have is kangaroo care. It is so simple. Just place your baby, wearing only a diaper, directly against your bare chest. The benefits are just profound. Your body heat and the rhythm of your own breathing helps regulate their temperature, their heart rate, everything. But the real magic here is hormonal. This skin-to-skin contact triggers a flood of oxytocin, the love or bonding hormone, in both you and your baby. It lowers stress hormones, and it literally, physically rebuilds those feelings of safety, trust, and connection. It is a fundamental reset for the parent-child bond.
So here's the big takeaway. When your baby arches their back, they are not rejecting you. They are communicating. They might be saying, "I'm in pain," or "This touch is too much for my brain right now," or "Maybe I don't feel safe unless we're moving," or even, "I've learned to be afraid to ask for comfort." Your job isn't to feel rejected, it's to become a detective and a translator. By understanding these hidden reasons, you can move from a place of confusion and hurt to one of real empathy and empowerment, learning the unique dialect of your child, and finally giving both of you the connection you so deeply deserve.